Hey guys, it's the hopeless romantic, Alyssa.
And I'm Danielle Osborne, and I am the whodunit detective here in this duo.
And welcome to Main Character Syndrome. If you feel like you are the main character in your life, you are in the right place. Obviously, we have to talk about the elephant in the room and what is buzzing on social media right now, and that is the It Ends With Us movie.
We saw it.
And we did not have fun.
It was an experience.
I think both of us at the end of the movie were like...
we just looked at over at each other like, okay, wow.
That was a movie.
It was a movie.
Listen, if you have not read the book, you would probably like the movie.
I thought the same thing. I saw a lot of people in comments on social media talking about how much they liked this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And like looking back, I'm like, as someone who read the book, did not.
Yeah, if you read the book, you will be severely disappointed.
Mm-hmm. Unless you're just like a fanatic and you're gonna love everything that's put out about Colleen Hoover's books. But yeah, overall, Alyssa, I gave this a bad rating. I said 4 out of 10, and I think that was kind of generous.
Honestly, it was one of the worst book adaptations that I've seen.
We're hitting this hard right off the bat.
But I mean, come on. I mean, it was a good movie. Don't get me wrong. Blake Lively was good. Justin Baldoni was great as Ryle.
I have a different opinion.
Different opinions.
I don't think the acting is very great.
It was okay. I mean, it's a movie.
For a low-budget film,
yeah,
it's great, but you don't have a low-budget main character, and it's just disappointing. It was really disappointing.
It was... I mean, it's, if you're looking for a movie that's like very romantic and has like a little bit of a dark plot line, then yeah, that movie is for you. But I mean, this book is about domestic violence and they barely touched it.
Was this movie about domestic violence? Because I do not believe so.
Yeah, I feel like it was really romanticized in the movie. And I mean, as I said, it's one of the worst book adaptations simply because half of the stuff in the book isn't even in the movie.
Correct. There were several scenes where I was like, okay, definitely did not play out that way. I'm like, the timeline is totally wrong. And yeah.
Let's start with some like small changes and then we'll kind of get into some of the big ones that are like super important. So first of all, the movie's opening scene, completely different from the book. In the book, she's already on the rooftop and she meets Ryle right away.
Yeah.
After her dad's funeral.
Correct.
And in the movie, she's getting ready for her dad's funeral. She's talking with her mom. And then they go and they're at the funeral. And she does the eulogy.
I could understand that, I'm like, you got to set the scene. Like the book started off talking about, the past in that sense. Like the funeral had already happened. So they needed to let that scene kind of play out. But the rooftop scene, I'm sorry. I think that was a huge mistake. It's a small change, but Ryle would never in the book climb on that ledge. And as soon as he did in the movie, I gasped and I was like, he's terrified of heights. And that's like a character trait of your character. You are completely going against your character.
Yeah.
In that moment.
Exactly. And not only that, but half the things that they talked about on the riff scene were brought up later in the movie, because right away she says that her dad beat up her mom as a naked truth. That was the first naked truth that she told Ryle, was that her parents were in an abusive relationship. And it's not until later when they're like dating that the first incident happened that she's like, oh, by the way, my dad hit my mom.
Yeah.
And he learns about that. And he's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But like he knows from the get-go in the book that she comes from an abusive family.
Yeah. And the abuse scenes were, I would say, all very different than how they played out in the book. What really made me mad was the first act of abuse in the kitchen. Completely different in the movie. In the book, we know that Lily is doing something nice for Ryle. She is being a good girlfriend, She's made this dinner for him. She's just gotten a bit drunk. Yeah. And the dinner is burning and Ryle goes and pulls it out with his hand.
Mhm.
But it's a dinner. It's not a brunch.
Right.
And they pulled out the fact that Lily was drunk and laughing at
Mhm.
him, which I think was a huge part of that scene and how that played out.
I think so. And also with like forgiving the first incident, because you could see, oh yeah, she was drunk and laughing at him. He had already burnt his hand and he was running it under the underwater in the sink to try and save his hand that he uses for surgery.
Yeah.
And he had this huge surgery the next day. And then he backhands her and is like, it's not okay to laugh. I need this hand for surgery. And so, I mean, the person looking on the outside, looking in, could be like, okay, I understand that he was mad.
Yeah.
And in a horrible way to say, justifying the anger. But not justifying, obviously, the abuse. But he could be angry because she's laughing at him.
Yeah.
Because he hurt himself.
Exactly. So they changed that up completely. And we can't just like skip over the fact that all of these abuse scenes, I'm like, what did you give them? Less than 5 minutes?
Yeah.
I'm like, this is the main part of this book.
Yeah.
And the amount of time spent in the film on the actual acts of domestic violence were minuscule. And I'm like, that was just very, very poor.
And I understand not wanting to go into graphic detail and to maybe re-trigger someone who goes and watches the movie, but understand that they happened. Like, there wasn't anything of Atlas's abuse at home.
No. They just like, he mentions it briefly.
He mentions it. I mean, the one impactful scene where he tells Lily that he went into that old house to kill himself.
Yeah.
It was just so casual. It was like, by the way, Lily, I went into that house to kill myself, so you saved my life.
Yeah, like, oh, wait, this is actually kind of important, so we forgot about this. We need to squeeze this in here right now.
We didn't get any backstory.
Atlas's backstory was completely removed, basically, from this, outside of him saying that his mom's boyfriend beat him.
We got, like, a snippet because she's like, what happened to your hand? And she's like, oh, mom's boyfriend, I got in the way.
Yeah. So that wasn't great. The scenes just went by too fast. And then the stair scene, the stair abuse scene. That obviously happened very quickly as well. And what I absolutely hated was that she wakes up and she's conscious. And in the movie, she acts like everything's okay. Like she has no idea what's just happened and that she forgives him. Even though she's like, I don't know basically what I'm forgiving you. She's like, oh, it was an accident. It was an accident. I fell down the stairs. And then in the book, she calls him out.
And kicks him out of the apartment. And he sleeps in the hallway.
You pushed me down the stairs. And she was a strong woman in that scene in the book. And then I feel like in the movie, they've removed that strength and that recognition. And I think that was just, that made me so upset. I'm like, that is a key moment where Lily is showing her strength. She's showing she knows what's going on. She's seen this before and she recognizes this. And then in the movie, that was just completely washed out.
Well, let's talk about the third abuse scene, which was like the most impactful, the most violent, in my opinion, in the book. Ryle straight up attacks her. Not only does he bite her, then he takes her to the room to attempt to rape her. And in the movie, there's like none of that. He pins her to the couch.
Yeah, it's like insinuated.
Yeah.
But
in the book, he actually, like, she bites him, and then he, like, headbutts her, and she goes unconscious. And then he's like, I'm sorry, and, like, he falls asleep. She texts Atlas, and calls him, and is like, help me, come get me. And Atlas comes to the apartment, physically picks her up because she's so dizzy from a concussion.
Yeah.
And takes her to the hospital.
Yeah.
They completely skipped over that.
Yeah. And I feel like sounds terrible to say, but I felt like when she was in the hospital, my thoughts were that didn't look actually like that much violence. So why is she in the hospital? That's terrible to say, but in my mind, I was like, that doesn't make sense. Like he bit her, but that's kind of all you see.
I think Atlas wanted that on record. I think he wanted to take her and be like, hey, her husband is like this, and she's like, he's like, you need to go to the hospital and get this, like, either photographed, evidence, whatever, in case something happens in the future. Which is what a lot of victims sometimes do, even if it's just like a bruise or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the book, Ryle like attacked her, like headbutted her, gave her a concussion.
Yeah.
Like she was not okay.
Messed up.
And in the movie, she was okay enough to drive to Atlas's restaurant and ask him for help.
Yeah.
And then go to the hospital.
I mean, I'm not saying we needed like a complete violent movie here, but I just feel like these key moments were shrunken down, and other moments, like all of their love, romance, and all that stuff was kind of heightened and given way more time than what it should have been.
And like, I'm not trying to say like Blake Lively needed to be beat in the movie. I'm not saying that. And Justin Baldoni actually came out with a statement. I can't remember where it was like from, but he had said, you know, he didn't want to go too into detail with the domestic violence scenes because he didn't want the audience to be like, oh, why didn't she leave him right away? But I feel like that's the point.
Yeah.
You know, they beat you, but you still love them. And I have not been in a domestic violence relationship. I've been in a mentally abusive relationship, emotionally abusive relationship, but never actually physical. So I cannot say whether or not like I would have rather had those scenes as a domestic violence survivor or if I would have been triggered.
Yeah. But I think if you were going to see this movie having had that kind of experience, I mean, I think it's kind of pretty well known that that's what this book is about.
The movie trailer did not. You couldn't tell that it was really about domestic violence.
That's true. So if you were like blindly going into this, I could see how they would want to not make it so triggering. But I feel like most of their viewership is people who've read the book.
Yeah.
But I also think a way to kind of get over that hump of like, oh, we don't want to trigger anyone is to put a disclaimer.
Trigger warnings.
Like when you're buying the tickets, like, hey, this is about self-harm, domestic abuse. Like,
might be triggering for some people. Yeah. We got none of that.
Yeah, I think it was just really frustrating. But yeah, so many changes. And like I said, the timing was messed up. They got married in the book before Ryle's sister had the baby, and he did not propose to her in the hospital room holding
the baby.
Right?
That was
I was
so weird.
That's tacky.
There were no, like, they skipped a lot of Ryle's red flags as well.
That's
like
so true.
Knocking on 29 doors to find her just to have sex with her.
And buying an apartment without even like consulting her. Yeah, those red flags, you're completely correct, were completely like overlooked. And I think there's always something to like talk about. And those red flags are the things that should be highlighted for people who are going through relationships, can kind of turn to these like, oh, that's kind of what like the beginning stages of domestic abuse can look like. That's not normal.
Yeah.
And I think that's what kind of needs to be highlighted. It's like these behaviors are not normal. They're not okay. And if you're experiencing any of these, you need to kind of take a step back and realize the situation you're in might not be good and it could continue to escalate.
I mean, from what I saw, there wasn't even a slate like, if you have been experiencing domestic violence, here is the hotline.
It was at the very end.
Was it?
It was in the credits at the very end.
See, I think that should be highlighted.
Yeah. Probably at the beginning.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I'm just kind of spitballing here, but here's something else that they changed, and it's a minuscule change. Lucy, the roommate, didn't exist.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about her. I guess they couldn't pay another actor.
Yeah. But the big one that, I don't know, I get the whole Ellen DeGeneres show and how she treated her employees and the controversy with that. There's a huge chunk surrounding Ellen in the book.
Yeah.
That really got passed over. Number one, the journals.
Yep.
Which is what triggered the third act of violence.
Yeah.
Because he read her journals and was like, oh, this is why you have the Better in Boston magnet on your fridge. She names her middle name of her child is Dory.
Yeah.
Atlas gives her a manuscript or a memoir from Ellen DeGeneres that says, "Just keep swimming."
Yep.
And at the end, the best line of the book and Atlas's relationship with her is, "You can stop swimming now. We've reached the shore."
Yeah, that was a sweet moment.
And it's like, they passed over all of it. They changed the restaurant from Better in Boston to Root, like the oak tree.
I don't know why they did that.
I think I don't really know. I mean, I thought Better in Boston
Was great.
was great.
And I mean, the whole time I was thinking, I was like, why did they change it? Why did they change it while I was watching the movie? And then they tied it in at the end where you're like, okay, so Root does still have a meaning, but I'm like, what was wrong with Better in Boston? Like, nothing.
I really don't know. I think it's just because it had all the ties to,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how it had ties to Ellen, but I mean, without the journals, I mean, they did a pretty good job of doing the flashbacks,
Mm-hmm.
but they
Yeah.
needed to have maybe something like Dear Ellen as like a narrated voice.
Right. They just showed it briefly. Like they showed a brief clip of a journal that said Dear Ellen with like an entry.
And they showed them watching the Ellen DeGeneres show.
So, like for the readers, we got that. But to someone who hadn't read the book, they were like, well, what the hell is this? Well, what is Dear? Who's Ellen?
Yeah.
So they couldn't really tie that in together. But yeah, that was like a huge part of Lily's personality when she was younger. And that is how Lily coped with her parents fighting and her dad beating her mom.
Yeah.
Like that was her coping mechanism, and that was a huge part of her. So yeah, they completely removed the Dear Ellen. The abuse scenes were all wonky. The baby timing, that was just weird.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of anything else. What do you have?
How Ryle's brother died. When Alyssa sees Lily's injuries from being pushed down the stairs, she tells Ryle, "You need to tell her." And then Ryle comes out and is like, "This is how my brother died."
Yeah.
In the movie, she asks Alyssa, "How did Emerson die?" And then Alyssa tells her what happened with Emerson. And so, but that happens when they're basically separated and the third act has already happened. And she's like, okay, why is he the way that he is? But in the book, Ryle tells her, and then they kind of try and figure out a way to have him walk away when he's angry. So they try and make a plan because now she knows that he has these anger blackouts and they're trying to fix it.
Yeah, they were trying to go through that process of...
Yeah, because she knows that he's violent now. And now they're trying to cope with, okay, how do we fix this? How do we fix our relationship? How do we not make sure that it doesn't happen again? Which was a huge part of maybe someone's DV experience is they don't just up and leave right away. And I think that's what Justin Baldoni was trying to portray, was that after the first act of violence, not many people would just walk away. They're going to try and fix it.
Yeah.
Second act of violence, or first act of violence, accident. Second act of violence, maybe we can fix it. Third, okay, it's too much. She's gone.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I also didn't understand to begin when the domestic violence scenes were happening. Like I didn't understand what they were doing. It looked like they had changed everything completely. And so that was an interesting like take where they kind of showed it the first time through potentially Lily's eyes, where it's an accident. Oh, he didn't push me down the stairs. So they kind of like insinuated the first time around that these were all accidents and like didn't really happen. You're like questioning.
Yeah, because the whole time I'm like, wait, I thought he hit her in the first one and I thought he pushed her in the second.
Yeah.
And then when she's finally realizing, oh my gosh, my husband is exactly like my dad. And then then the scenes are shown that he actually backhanded her, or he actually pushed her down the stairs.
Yeah. They replayed those. So, I mean, I thought that was like a creative, interesting take.
Yeah.
That's not how it went in the book. Lily knew the whole time that this was not okay.
Right.
And so she wasn't overlooking these acts.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, I mean, it's, yeah, creative.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how it was.
I can see how it can be a little bit more realistic where they're trying to lie to themselves about what happened. Like, no, he didn't actually hit me. He accidentally pushed me out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
He accidentally burnt his hand and he accidentally went like this and like smacked me in the face.
And I could totally see that happening to victims out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, that is certainly probably someone's experience that they've had. But I just don't think that it was Lily's. And so I didn't like that they changed that up. And I think from the press tour of Blake Lively kind of talking about how they wanted to show Lily with strength and that how she's not defined by these acts. I was like, okay, well, I feel like the way they kind of rewrote some of these scenes actually took away from her strength instead of heightening it.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, of course, like no victim is defined by what someone else has done to them. But this is not real life. And this book is meant to highlight domestic violence and potentially help women who are in these situations get out.
Exactly. And while no DV case is the same, it is 9 times out of 10 graphic. I mean, they are beaten.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can see, like, in realistic terms, like, they aren't going to get out of the situation right away. But, I mean, Lily was, like, so different in the movie versus the book. Like, her attitude towards being hit, like, instantly, like you said, she knew it was not okay. Like, she knew he pushed her down the stairs. In the movie, she's like, it's okay, nothing happened. Like, she's trying to justify that Atlas's number in her phone was nothing. And then Ryle's like, please tell me it's nothing. Tell me it's nothing. Tell me it's nothing. When she's literally in the bed after he pushed her down the stairs.
Yeah.
And she's like, it was nothing. Like, reassuring him. Yeah. And so, again, in the book, she, like, kicked him out and made him sleep in the hallway because it's the second offense.
Yeah. I kind of wonder, I mean, Colleen Hoover was on the press tour, and I'm sure she got some work in about writing the script and stuff. So I just kind of don't understand. And that would be a question I have for her is why she let them make so many of these changes, especially to kind of these character traits.
I saw one of the reasons she made one of the changes, and it was to age up the characters. Which, I can see, because in the book, Lily's like 23, Atlas is a couple years older than her, and then Ryle's like 30.
Yeah.
So they aged up the characters a little bit, which I thought worked decently well. I mean, many people that age are experiencing domestic violence as well. And Justin Baldoni, clearly you could see in his press tour that he knew the message.
Yeah.
He knew that, he even said in the press tour that if a Lily in the audience is watching this and she comes out and she gets out of that situation, that is the goal of this movie.
Yeah.
One thing he wanted people to take away from the movie was hope. Not grab your besties, grab your florals, and head on down to the theater. That's like the boy in the striped pajamas, like, grab your PJs, let's go to the theater and have some fun.
Yeah, I sent you that video today. Yeah. I was like, I literally screamed when I saw that video, and he was like, if all of these movies...
grab your notepads, we're going to go see Schindler's List.
Yeah. Did PR like how Blake Lively did.
It was all flowers.
Yeah. It wasn't good. I think she really missed an opportunity, and I don't know. I don't want to just like sit here and crap talk her, but I really think that this was a missed opportunity for her as a woman, you know, a public figure, a woman that so many other women look up to take this role that she's been in and use it for a much bigger purpose than fashion and all of the other things. I don't know. That
fashion and flowers is basically how she was promoting the movie.
Yeah, I think I maybe saw like one video.
Well, and then
where
she
she
brought her
mentioned
husband
it.
into it.
Oh gosh,
She
yeah.
brought him into one of the press things because I remember
Mm-hmm.
when the actor who was playing Atlas did like some promo interview with Ryan Reynolds, who just popped up and started
Yeah.
talking about how he
Like
got his
the
butt to look that good. And it's like, this is not pertaining to the movie whatsoever.
no, no.
Like they almost
I
made
just
like kind of a mockery out of it because like they were playing Flower Pictionary, and while like fun things are good to have in a press tour, you need to talk about the message, which is exactly what Justin Baldoni was doing.
mm-hmm.
In every press thing that I was watching, he would talk about how dark and how hard it was to play Ryle and how he had to step out of that role because it got too real.
Yeah.
And Blake is talking about how she doesn't want the domestic violence to define Lily, but that is who Lily is. She grew up, it's generational trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they
And
skipped that.
it's her removing that generational trauma from her life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure, she's not defined by this, but once again, this is a book about domestic violence
Mm-hmm.
that is meant to help other women.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not actually Lily Bloom. And you need to remember that
Mm-hmm.
and remember that you're playing a character who is abused,
Mm-hmm.
and you need to highlight this and highlight other women who are Lily Bloom.
Absolutely. One other thing that they skipped over was the mom. So when mom finally finds out that she's dating a neurosurgeon, she's like, I want to be you when I grow up. And then at the end, when she finds out, I mean, that whole conversation with her mom about how she got out of the abusive relationship with Ryle and how he was abusive and how he hit her. And then the mom goes, I want to be you when I grow up. Completely skipped that.
Yeah, the mom's role was very small
Mm-hmm.
in the film.
And
overall.
I thought that was kind of important because, you know, the mom is like, I'm so proud of you for getting out of that relationship
Mm-hmm.
in the book. And in the movie, we get nothing. They're at the grave and she's like, let's get out of here.
Yeah.
They skipped the biggest part, which was generational trauma and ending the cycle.
Yeah. And like when she's in the hospital bed holding her little girl and she has this monologue, it was not
It wasn't my
the
favorite.
not the best acting. I don't know.
And I don't want to bash Blake Lively.
I could
She's
not-
a great actress.
I could not do what they do. So, I
No.
mean, it is so hard.
Mhm.
And I bet it is so hard as a director, as a producer, as an actor,
Mhm.
anyone in this film to take such a popular book
Mhm.
and turn it into a movie. I know that that has to be awful.
It is so difficult. And it's
But-
also hard to please everyone because you
Mhm.
have the people that read the book and you have the people that didn't.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the scene where they're in the hospital and Lily's asking him all these questions, in the book, I imagine they're both bawling their eyes out.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Ryle is distraught in this moment. Like, he's basically, like, begging her, like, please don't do this right now.
Yeah.
I got, not nonchalance, but, like, meh emotions.
Yeah. They weren't, it was just, I don't know.
I feel like they treated this movie as a romance instead of DV,
Mm-hmm.
and they really missed the ball on the impact that they could have had.
Correct. And then what I also did not like about the press tour was kind of how Blake talked a lot about her husband, who is Ryan Reynolds. And when I sent you another video of her talking about how she sees, like she wrote scenes so that her family can see themselves in characters, and like even like included some actual conversations that they've had.
Yeah.
And I think I said to you, I was just like, this movie is not about you or your family.
It was almost like she was trying to create Barbenheimer with Deadpool and Wolverine, and It Ends With Us.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many crossover things in, like, the
right.
press tour because not only did Ryan Reynolds sit and do that interview with the actor who played Atlas, but in another interview with, like, a podcast host, Ryan gave her a message, and I saw that he was like, come home, your kids miss you, I miss you, and then in pops Hugh Jackman. It's like, yeah, you need to come home. And it was tasteless promotions and marketing, in my opinion. Like, whoever did the marketing for that did not do a good job.
You missed the ball.
Completely missed the mark.
Bucko.
Whoever did Justin Baldoni's knocked it out of the park.
Yeah, that was great. Overall, I would say the beef, we haven't even mentioned the beef between them.
Yeah.
Completely, before I even sat down in that chair, ruined this movie experience.
I think so. And I think that's why we're judging this so hard, is because I've seen all of the interviews, all of the promotions for this movie, and I'm just kind of over it.
Yeah.
Because I saw how Blake Lively acted in a press junket when asked, what would you do if someone came up to you and wanted to talk to you about this? Wanted to talk about domestic violence. And she jokes around. She's like, oh, I'd give them my number, maybe share my location, which, like, it's Blake Lively. She's not going to do that. And it's like, you are literally joking around about talking with domestic violence survivors.
Yeah, the whole drama, the whole press tour, like the completely different press tours that they had, because obviously we're not a part of this situation, so we don't know exactly what has happened. Maybe Justin's a real a-hole.
Maybe.
And yeah, but I will say he's done a better job at this press tour and actually standing up for women. But yeah, I sat down in that chair at the movies and I was just like, two main characters hate each other.
Yeah.
Is what I've seen on social media.
And it was kind of evident in the movie. There was some tension.
That's what I was like looking for. That's what I kept noticing. I was like, okay, so I know you guys don't like each other. And now I'm like analyzing their acting. And I'm like, yeah, I don't really see that connection. And it's hard to have a romance movie, because that's basically what this was, when you know that the two main characters have absolutely no romance and zero friendship, zero connection.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I sat down in that chair, I will say, already with a bias of like, I have a bad taste in my mouth, because I know that these two people do not like each other and did not get along.
Do you remember 50 Shades of Grey? So the two characters that played the main characters in that one actually hated each other. Dakota Johnson, I can't remember the other guy's name. But they actually did not like each other, and it was very evident in the movies. That's what this kind of feels like.
Yeah.
But Blake Lively has had problems with cast in the past.
Really?
Leighton Meester, Penn Badgley. I mean, according to other people on Instagram and stuff, they don't follow her on Instagram, but they follow Justin Baldoni on Instagram. So there's some beef there.
Tea.
There's a little bit of tea. But again, outside looking in, I have no idea. But I've heard that Blake Lively was kind of a pain to work with in Gossip Girl.
If you're a producer, you're not a director.
No.
And your director is your boss. And it doesn't matter if you're freaking Brad Pitt. You still have a boss, and you go to that boss. He does not have to listen to you.
Yeah. Well, and Justin Baldoni did say, he wanted a female gaze on this movie. He didn't want it to come from his perspective, because he wanted a little bit more of a gentler touch with this movie, just because of the content. And I understand that. And he was just he would praise Blake Lively, said that she did great. She was an amazing producer. I think Blake and Ryan took over this movie.
Yeah.
And it's evident by the way that Justin was like, when asked about It Starts With Us and if he would direct that, he's like, oh, I think Blake's ready to direct. It's like, she stepped on his toes.
Yikes.
She stepped on his toes. She even said that they begged her to take Cherry out by Lana Del Rey of the movie. And like, they begged her to take out that song because it was too charged and too heavy for a certain scene. And she justified her answer, but it's like, that's not your ultimate decision.
Yeah.
It's the director's.
And then when she rolled her eyes talking about it, that song, or adding Taylor Swift, I can't remember which one, she like rolled her eyes and was like, oh, I'm not supposed to be talking about this. I was like,
I will say my Tears Ricochet slayed with that movie.
I mean, I didn't really notice any problems with the music. So, I mean, that may have been, it may have been a good choice. I mean, I didn't mind it.
I didn't either. I thought the music choices were fine.
But I don't know if I would have fought with my boss about something like that.
And Ryan wrote the rooftop scene, and it was kind of evident.
Yeah. You're like, okay, did you read this book?
No.
No, there's no way. If you did and you read the scene in the book, why would you put him on the edge?
Yeah.
That's not him.
Yeah, when he hopped up there, I was like, oh, okay, this is different.
Yeah.
Like right away, the movie was completely different from the book.
Yeah.
And I get it's an adaptation, which means it's not going to be cover to cover exactly what the book is like. I understand that. But it is missing a lot of key elements. And they tried to save it with Root and the scene with the oak tree and the magazine and how it said, I carved a heart for someone that I loved and as a child, whatever. But I mean, Better in Boston was always like what
Bibs.
really worked, Bibs. So I'm like, why'd you change that? And I saw an interview actually with Justin Baldoni and Colleen Hoover, and they said because Bibs was weird. I don't think so. I liked it personally. I thought it was cute.
It makes you want to go to a restaurant and wear a bib. That's all
Yeah.
I'm saying.
Better in Boston, bib. I thought it was genius when I read the book. I was like, oh, that makes sense. That's cute. And he named the restaurant after her.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, the same thing with Root. But that's what makes Ryle go ballistic is that he named the restaurant Better in Boston. He saw that in the magazine. And then he saw the magnet. And then he read the journals. Yeah. And then he attacked Lily.
Yeah. So, if you can't tell, we weren't fans of the movie.
I think we would have if we didn't read the book. And I think if we didn't love the book as much as we did, because I gave it 5 stars.
Yeah, me too.
I think we would have liked the movie a lot more. Also, without the drama.
Literally, the drama, you ruined it for us. You literally ruined it for us with that drama alone.
Thank you, TikTok.
Great.
Thanks, Instagram, social media.
Yeah. So.
One thing I loved, though, and I'm glad it came out of the movie, was on Justin's social media. There were a few women that were like, I went in to see It Ends With Us, and I left my abusive relationship.
That's amazing.
And so that is what the movie was meant to do. That is the message. And I think Justin Baldoni hit the nail on the head. That is what he wanted. Blake Lively could care less at that point.
That's what it seemed. It's just, I mean, we can't speak for her, but it's certainly what it seemed like.
It seemed like she was very tone deaf.
Justin was working with like a specific organization that helps women in abusive relationships.
Well, and they also miss like proceeds from some ticket sales could go help domestic violence victims or go to some shelters. Missed all of that.
Yeah.
And if they did that and I didn't see it, kudos to you. But if you didn't, you missed the mark.
Try again in the next one.
Maybe It Starts With Us is probably Blake's speed because that's more the romance. That's where we get Atlas and Lily and their story. Ryle is still there, but he's really annoying.
Yeah.
You got to read that
I still haven't read it yet.
But it's just a cute little fuzzy love story. But I think not having the Ellen DeGeneres element and Dory and Nemo, it didn't make the story as impactful as it was, especially like the ending scene where Lily in the book goes to drop off Emmy with Ryle. She comes back to tell Atlas that she named her daughter's middle name after basically him. She named her Dory.
Yeah.
And then they hug, and then Atlas is like, you can stop swimming now, Lily. We finally reached the shore. And it's so sweet and so impactful. And in the end, in the movie, they see each other happenstance like 6 months, a year. I mean, it's a little time has gone by since she's seen him last. But, I mean, they just kind of like look at each other like, are you still with him? No. And then like you think they might kiss, you think they might hug, and then all of a sudden it like fades to black and it's like, oh. Like I can see that they're setting it up for the next movie. But the most impactful part for me was the just keep swimming. The you can stop swimming now. We finally reached the shore.
That would have been a great way to end.
It was so sweet, so impactful, and I was so sad that it wasn't in the movie. And again, I get the controversy, but this was in the book. It was a huge part.
Yeah.
It was a huge part of her journals to herself, her coping mechanism. Ellen DeGeneres was her safety blanket. You have to have something like that. At least let her watch Finding Nemo and they can talk about it in the movie.
Yeah.
I don't know. I really think they missed the mark. And this is nothing against Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively. This is just creative differences. Maybe some people really loved the way that it was adapted from the book to the movie. But
We'd
this
like
is just
to know
our
your
opinion.
thoughts. So
Yeah.
be sure to send them in to us. Anything we missed that were changes in the movie that were different from the book that we missed, let us know.
No negative comments, all positive. We all have different opinions. You know, let's just be nice to each other. If you disagree with what we're saying, you can tell us that. But
I saw plenty of people who said that they loved it, and that's great.
Yeah. And I really hope that whoever is in a domestic abuse relationship, domestic violence, generational trauma, I hope that when they see this movie, it gives them the courage to get out. Correct. Or they got out of a situation years ago and they see this and they're like, man, this made me feel so strong, so empowered. I'm so glad I made the decision that I did.
And if that was you, we'd love to know, and we'd love to support you through this new journey of your life.
Yeah, we would. And we want to say, if you or someone you know is dealing with domestic violence, there are so many resources out there to help, including the hotline 1-800-799-SAFE and the hotline.org. Very important resources. But
check those out.
That was our nicely worded episode of our review for It Ends With Us, the movie. Overall, meh.
Bad.
Thumbs down. Not our favorite, but, you know, creative differences.
Yeah.
I will say. For now, to the readers who listen, we'll see you later.
Bye, everyone.